Yo, what is up, guys? Grim here. Today we're going to be covering how you kind of level up a Templar. Because a lot of people asked in the other video, the EK guide, how do I get to this point? Can you please explain how to get through the acts very easily without dying and all that kind of stuff? I've kind of got a guide here for you guys. Just keep in mind I play on soft core, so if you're a hardcore bro, then it might be a little bit different for you. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to be showing you kind of how to get to the end game point with whatever kind of Templar character you want and how I do it every single time. So I don't actually have any character to show you in terms of like using the skill or anything like that because I haven't leveled any more characters currently. However, I can go into some pretty crazy detail for you guys on how you'll be able to do it. And you can basically go from act like 1 to 10 in like a few hours. And if you're playing through like a bit of a drawn out play session, you can do it every couple of days as well. So we'll get straight into it. We're going to go to a spreadsheet here. So basically, you're going to go through three different transitions when you're leveling as a Templar. Well, at least I do, and that's how I have it set up. So to begin with, you're going to be level 1. You're on the Twilight Strand. You're not too great. And what you're going to be starting with is Freeze Pulse. So by default, Templar doesn't actually get Freeze Pulse. But as you can see over here, I've got a massive kind of like step-by-step process of when you're going to get all your skill gems, what level to be in terms of when you're killing bosses and stuff like that, and kind of just a general guide to walk you through the whole entire process so you don't get lost or you don't feel under-leveled or anything like that. So as you can see here, Act 1, you kill Hillock, which is the first boss, and then you can talk to Nessa. So wherever you see an NPC name here, it means after a quest is complete, you can talk to the Gem Vendor NPC, which I'll show you right now in Act 1. For anyone new who doesn't know, you can go to the vendor who sells potions and magic items, and you can click the second tab and you can buy a bunch of gems from them. And that's what you've got listed there on my spreadsheet, and you'll be able to get all that kind of stuff there. So as you can see here, Freeze Pulse. So we're going back here. So we're going to get Freeze Pulse to start off with. We're going to buy that off Nessa. And whenever you see a gem in the setups that we're talking about, you can kind of look over here and see when you're going to get it, and you can kind of fit that into your kind of planning. So yeah, we've got all that laid out there. Not going to go too much more into detail over here on this. We're going to go spend our time over here. So to begin with, we're going to get Freeze Pulse. We're going to attach Added Lightning and Arcane Surge to it. So when you're going through Act 1, levels 1 to 12, what you're really looking for is a 3-link blue item and potentially a 2-link blue item as well. So you're looking for those blue sockets. You want to try and get those together. If you can get that 3-link blue item, you're going to be doing a lot more damage and it's going to be pretty good. If you get stuck on a 2-link, it's not the end of the world. I'm just going to quickly go on D&D here because I know a lot of people don't like that stuff. So basically to start out with, you're not too strapped for damage. So if you end up with a 2-link, it's fine. So as you can see here, these skills are going to be ordered in order of most damage that they provide or most utility they provide. So we're going to start off with Free Pulse there. That's the best spell. We need to have that in. The next one in priority is Added Lightning and so on and so forth. So that's just something to keep in mind. The other things we have set up here is a Totem Setup. So every character in PoE, as I've said before, can have one totem. So we're going to make sure we make use of that. And we're going to pick up the Flame Totem, which you get pretty early on. And it will kind of lay down a bit of damage for you, and it'll tank a few hits as well. So you can kind of do a bit of run and gun with that, throw down your totem, let the boss attack that, it'll do a bit of damage. And you're going to attach Added Lightning to that as well. And then for a bit of mobility, just to get over some annoying walls and stuff like that, we're going to put Flame Dash on. So after we hit level 12 with that setup there, that's going to take us through fairly easily. You're going to move on to Firestorm, and Firestorm is basically what you unlock at level 12, and it's going to carry for quite a while. It's going to carry from all the way from level 12 to Act 5. So, for us, sorry, Firestorm, yeah, so basically this is looking a bit more complicated here. I've got 6 links here and stuff like that. However, you don't need to worry about that. So your mission after you get to level 12 is to try and find a 4-link blue item. And then you also kind of want to be looking for a 3-link, 2 blue, 1 red. And the reason for that is our main damage setup now is going to be Firestorm, which you get in Act 1, faster casting, control destruction, and I've put increased critical strikes here, but you're not going to add that in until later. You're going to be using Added Lightning. So Firestorm is from Act 1, faster casting is from Act 2, and control destruction is also from Act 2. And then finally, Added Lightning is from Act 1. So it's a really easy setup for you to get going. All you need to do is find the gem sockets. So that's not too hard. If you've got an OK loot filter, like Neversinks or something, it'll highlight those 4 links very nicely for you. You can also check the vendors in town. They can have them as well. So over here, we're swapping out our totem setup a little bit from our flame totem. We're going to get another Firestorm gem, and we're going to throw it in there, and we're also going to attach it to a spell totem and concentrated effect. So that's going to be a lot of damage. We basically get 2 Firestorms instead of 1. So whenever we're doing a boss, you're going to throw down that totem. It's going to be firing off its Firestorm, and you'll be firing off yours. And you're going to be having a lot of damage, and it's going to tank a few hits for you as well. So with a lot of these gem setups, you're going to notice like a few skill gems, like Spell Totem. You can actually buy that in Act 1. So when you're getting your quest rewards over here, it might be a good idea to pick it up when you're there, because that'll save you a little bit of time, and you can kind of plan around that as well. So in terms of mobility, this is kind of a bit of a necessity. You don't need to have mobility, but if you pick up a shield and a weapon which is okay, you can throw in shield charge, faster attacks, and fortify. So when you get in the later acts, um, down here with Frostbolt, you're going to want to have that shield charge set up. But to begin with, it's okay to use 2 scepters or 2 wands for a bit of extra damage. You don't need to worry about this too much. I've just put it here in case you wanted to know about it. Otherwise, just use Flame Dash. It's pretty good, and it'll do the job. So next up here, I've got Decoy Totem. Decoy Totem is another early kind of game skill that you get. If you're not too worried about damage and you're okay going at a bit of a slower pace on bosses and stuff like that, you can throw in the Decoy Totem instead of this setup here. And basically what that'll do is it'll basically like kind of taunt the boss, and it'll mitigate a lot of damage for you. So you're going to save a lot of deaths there, but you'll be a bit slower in general. I've also got here an Immortal Call and Castle Damage Taken setup. So when you get to the later acts, like Acts 4 and 5, this is going to save your ass a lot. A lot of the bosses do these really heavy physical attacks, specifically Katava. His big arm sweeps are all physical, so this is actually going to completely mitigate that mechanic because it'll hit you once, it'll trigger Immortal Call, and then when he scrapes over you, all the other physical ticking damage won't apply to you. So this is a really powerful one if you can get it set up pretty early. You get both these gems pretty much around Act 4, and it'll be really good to have for Katava. So that's really good. I got another one here, Curse on Hit, Assassin's Spark, and Herald of Ice. So this is going to be a bit of utility if you can get it going. It's going to give you a bit more critical strike, so it's going to help killing packs a little bit faster. So that's really good. Definitely consider that one. So in terms of a bit of utility here, Blood Rage I've got here. This is probably when you get to about Act 9. You don't want to be using this too early on because you'll just kill yourself. But when you're in farm mode, trying to get up some levels after you've kind of gotten to Act 9, this is when you want to put Blood Rage in, and you can kind of get a bit of Frenzy Charge generation going. Some other ones here, Wrath. Wrath is going to be your aura of choice while you're using Firestorm and Frostbolt. You can throw it on. It's going to give you a ton of extra lightning damage, and it's going to be really good for you. So another thing we got here is Warlord's Mark. Warlord's Mark is just something you're always going to be wanting to use on a spellcaster because Leech is so hard to access as a spellcaster. You want to be cursing the boss with Warlord's Mark wherever you can. So on bosses, this is going to help you out with mana sustain and life sustain quite a bit, and it's going to be really effective for you. So that's kind of going to be what you're going to be rolling with for level 12 to Act 5. It's pretty good. It's definitely not the fastest thing in the world, but it gets the job done. You shouldn't have any trouble doing all of those acts with those setups. So I'll quickly skim over kind of what you're looking for in terms of gear. So if you don't have any leveling gear, what you're going to be looking for is basically your gem links. That takes priority. So you want to find that 4-link blue, the 2-link and blue with 1 red in there as well. And you want to kind of try and set that up for your late game. Other than that, you just want to cap out your resistances and get as much life as possible. Kind of a bit of bonus stuff you can look for is some wands, maybe a scepter, and a shield or a dagger. All of those with spell power on them are going to help you out a lot because early on, any increase to your damage as a percentage is very powerful. So if you can get a scepter with some spell damage on it, or a couple wands, dual wielding them, something like that, it's going to be really good. But just keep in mind you can't shield charge with wands, so it's going to be a bit of picking and choosing. But basically when you're leveling up, you kind of just roll with what you get. You don't really get to choose what you get so much unless you already have some currency. So moving on, after we get to Act 5, it's a very specific point in Act 5 where you're going to do a quest. and it's going to give you what's called a threshold jewel as a quest reward. And these threshold jewels, I'll see if I have one. Basically what we're looking for is Frozen Trail. It's a cobalt threshold jewel. Doesn't look like I have one on me. I'll bring it up on the wiki for you just so you guys know which one it is. It's going to give you kind of a bonus to Frostbolt, which is why we made the switch at that specific point. So here it is. Here we go. We're going to bring this over here. As you can see here, this gem is called the Frozen Trail. When you put it in here, what it's going to do is make it so your Frostbolt shoots 2 additional projectiles per jewel, and you can have up to 2. So the quest reward will only give you 1, but you can get a second one either off a friend who's also leveling with you, who does the quest with you, or you can buy it for about 1 chaos off PoE trade. So that's not bad. You want to try and get at least one of those, or 2 if you possibly can. So what that's going to allow us to do is kind of get up into a little bit of clear speed then, because we're shooting out 5 projectiles now at our character instead of laying down an area, which we were with Firestorm. So once you get Frostbolt, you can kind of really pick up the pace and go a lot faster. Frostbolt also has a 100% chance to pierce through everything. So basically when you shoot out a volley of balls, it's going to go through everything and hit the whole screen in front of you. So it's really powerful. When you put it on in game, you'll realize how good it is, and it's pretty fun to use. So when we get to Frostbolt, that's going to be in Act 5. We have a lot of new skill gems available to us. So as you can see here over in our kind of leveling guide over here a little bit, you get a lot of gems in Acts 1, 2, 3, and 4. When you see you get to Act 5 and onwards, you don't actually get any new skill gems. And that's because Act 5 is kind of a conclusion. It's a pretty short act, but in Act 6, you can do a quest, which I'll show you how to get now. It's off an NPC called Lily Roth, who you can find over here once you complete Act 5 and rock up at Act 6. She'll be here. And what she's going to do is she's going to ask you to go to the Twilight Strand, which is just over here. And she's going to ask you to clear out the Twilight Strand of monsters. And once you do that, you'll gain access to every single skill gem in the game, and you can purchase them off her. And that'll allow you to basically build whatever character you want at any point. There's no more restrictions on what skills you can and can't get. So that means you can fill in all the blanks that you have here. You can get stuff like increased critical strikes and stuff like that. So now that we have the option of all skill gems, we have a lot more flexibility in what we can do. And that'll allow us to really power up our character a lot. So this is where gem links are really important. You're still looking for those resists though. You're still looking for life and a little bit of spell damage, but you really want your gem links. So when you're looking around at the loot on the ground, you really want to be picking up the ones which kind of match up with this a little bit if you can. So everything else is the same as up here. We're looking for the same kind of stuff. However, our damage setup is a little bit different. So we're using Frostbolt now, which is what we talked about earlier. It's a projectile skill. And we're swapping our faster casting out here for Spell Echo, which you get in Act 4. Spell Echo doesn't work very well with Firestorm, but it works excellently with Frostbolt. So we're throwing that in there. We're going to put Control Destruction in still, which we've got up here. And we're prioritizing increased critical strikes now instead of added lightning. If you have a 6 link, which is, we'll get to a little bit later, but it's called Tabula Rasa. It's a leveling item. You can also throw in these other 2 down here, which I've suggested. But if you don't have one, that's completely fine. Most people don't have one when they're just starting out. So you can just use those 4 that I suggested there. So a 4-link blue. I've still got here the Firestorm totem. It's still good. You can still use it all the way up until Act 10. Just throw it down and it'll do a lot of damage for you as well. However, if you're not feeling the damage from it anymore and it kind of feels like it's falling off, you can just use the Decoy Totem and free up a few gem sockets here. So this is kind of the point when you really want to be trying to find a shield and a scepter to find and put on so you can start shield charging. Shield charge is basically going to improve your clear speed through the story a lot. You're going to be a lot more mobile. You can dodge boss mechanics a lot better. So if you can try and find a scepter or a dagger and a shield at this point with a bit of spell damage on it or a spell crit, this is when you want to be doing it and make the swap. So we've got a Decoy Totem and Immortal Call set up there. It's still really good. And Curse on Hit, Assassin's Mark, and Herald of Ice, which is going to give you a bit more cold damage and AoE, and it's going to give you some power charges for more critical strike. We're still using our auras over here and Warlord's Mark, and this is kind of where Blood Rage is going to start to come in effect. This is when you want to start throwing it on and getting a bit of those frenzy charges. So that's kind of all that. I'm going to quickly go over flasks. So the most important flask while you're leveling is obviously the life flask. You can use one, two, or even three of these if you want. And they're really good. Just get them and try and get a few immunity resistances on them. And by what I mean by those is bleed immunity, cold immunity, so freeze, shock immunity, and if you can, maybe get a bit of curse immunity as well. On your mana flask, similar story. You want to have those immunities if you can get them, and just get the highest level mana flask and life flask you can for your current situation. So I got a few utility ones here. The Quicksilver Flask is just going to improve your shield charge speed and run speed, so you'll be able to get places faster and finish the story faster. The Silver Flask is, again, it's movement speed, but it's also cast and attack speed, so more mobility, but also more damage from your spell because you'll be casting faster. And finally here we have a Diamond Flask. A Diamond Flask is essentially going to just a little bit under double your critical strike chance during its duration, so it's really good, especially because we're scaling critical strike here on Frostbolt and Firestorm. So if you can get a Diamond Flask, try and get that as well. The bandit we're going to be choosing is we're going to choose to help Alira. And the reason for this is it's easily the best endgame's kind of bandit. Gives you resists, critical strike multiply, and mana regeneration. If your build specifically needs a different one, make sure you go with that. Otherwise, Alira is basically the go-to for most builds. So I've got a few leveling stuff here, which I've got as suggestions. So as a chess piece, you want to try and get a Tabula Rasa if you can. And that's going to do really well. It's a 6-link, so you can kind of take into account these other gem links we've got listed here. For weapons, you can either use 2 life sprigs, which are very good. They'll give you a lot of spell damage and a bit of sustain. Or you can use Brightpeak with a shield. That'll make you really fast. It'll make you zip around everywhere, which is really good as well. For boots, you're going to use Wanderlust if you can get them. They're going to give you freeze immunity and a bit of movement speed as well. So for rings, you kind of have 2 different options. You can use what's called Praxis Rings, which will basically remove your mana cost completely. So you can drop a mana flask for another life flask or a utility flask. These can be a little bit expensive though, but if you can get them, they're absolutely fabulous to level with. You can basically just sit there and machine gun your skill without having to worry about your mana ever. The other one I've got here is Lahoop. This is basically just going to give you a ton of resists, and you'll never have to worry about resists again if you're wearing 2 of these and a few of these other pieces. So next up, Gold Rim. This is a helmet with up to 30 to 40% of all elements resists on it. It's a very good leveling item. It's going to let you neglect your resists a little bit on your other gear, so if you can pick one of these up for cheap, highly recommend it as well. I've got listed here Loctodial Caress. These are a pair of gloves. These are pretty optional. You don't really need them. They're going to give you some attack speed, and they're going to give you the ability to generate a random charge when you kill stuff. So when you kill any monster, you have a chance to gain either a frenzy, power, or endurance charge. This is just going to juice up your character a little bit with some bonus stats. So those are okay. You don't need to use them by any means. Necklace, I've got Karui Ward. Karui Ward is basically going to increase your projectile damage by 30%, I believe it is. Give you a bit of projectile speed and a bit of movement speed. This is completely useless for Firestorm, but for Freeze Pulse and Frostbolt, it's very good. And this is the leveling item I use when I play with those. Finally here, I've got Darkness Enthroned, which is a leather belt. It's possible I can show you one of these, but basically what it is it's a belt with no stats on it, but you can put 2 Abyssal Jewels in them. And Abyssal Jewels are very powerful, and some of them have no level requirement. And basically what that allows you to do is completely trivialize some content with Abyssal Jewels, because you can get a lot of life on them and a lot of flat damage. So if you can get some one of these belts and a few really cheap low-level Abyssal Jewels with flat damage on them, and maybe a little bit of life, I'd highly recommend it. It'll basically almost sometimes double or triple your damage, just because at low levels you don't have that much damage, and the flat damage can just skyrocket everything. So that's really good. Try and pick up that. So now just a few kind of like little tips to wrap it all up. So when you're actually playing, I highly recommend when you're level 1, you're going to be able to receive Frostbolt from the vendor. Here it is here. So when you're level 1, you're going to be playing Freeze Pulse, but what you want to do is pick up that Frostbolt anyway, keep the starting weapon and put it in your offhand. And by what I mean by that is, as you can see here, you can have your kind of main weapons, and then you can have your offhand weapons. So what you want to do is keep the starting weapon you get, stick it in your offhand, and put Frostbolt in it. And the reason we do that is because skill gems still level up in your offhand. So while you're playing through the story, you're playing as Freeze Pulse and you're playing as Firestorm, you're going to be leveling up a Frostbolt in your offhand, which you can then swap into later. The reason for this is because when you go to swap into Frostbolt, if you don't have a leveled up one, it's going to do no damage, and you're going to struggle a lot with it. So if you've already got a pre-leveled one there, sitting in your bags, it's very good, and you're going to be able to steamroll the content even more. So that's my recommendation for that. And then one other tip here is, as you can see, I've only got listed, I got acts 1 to 5 here, and then 6 to 8. So the reason for this is, as soon as I get to Act 9, there's a specific zone I sit in and just like level there constantly. So this zone is the Blood Aqueducts, which I'll show you here. So basically this zone is a really big straight line, and it's got a lot of really good monsters in it, in terms of kind of stuff that like it drops. So as you can see here, all the monsters are very slow, and they don't do much damage. So when you like are clearing the zone, it's pretty safe. So if you're kind of weak when you're coming out of Act 8, you're going to have no trouble at all like clearing this zone. And the other benefit is that, as I said, it's a straight line. So you go all the way up, and then what you want to do is go back to town. So you'll go all the way up here, and then you'll end up in town. And then what you can do is you can come back over here. So you'll come in this way after you clear the zone. And then you want to control click the gate and hit new instance. And then you're going to go all the way back down to the waypoint. You're going to open the waypoint up, and then control click the waypoint, open another zone all the way back up. And then you keep going up and down, and you're going to get a lot of experience. And you're also going to have a chance to drop the following item. It's called Humility. And what this will allow you to do is get a really easy 6-link. And basically, once you farm up 9 Humility cards, which we've got here, it's going to give you a Tabula Rasa, which is a 6-link. So basically, every build in PoE wants a 6-link. It's going to be able to give you a lot more damage and a lot more of what you want. So once you get a 6-link, you're kind of good to go into maps. But before you have that, it's kind of a little bit of a struggle. There's no real easy way to get a 5-link. So this is the best way to kind of get everything you want. So the Tabula Rasa will be your 6-link of choice when you're leveling up, and you kind of hit 2 birds with 1 stone. So while you're in Blood Aqueducts, not only are you leveling up your character with experience, which you need anyway, but you're also farming up a 6-link at the same time. So this is definitely the best zone to level up in. So what I do here is I'm going to go from, like, when I rock up, which I'll have listed here on the spreadsheet. So it says here I arrive in Blood Aqueducts at around 54, and I sit there until like level 68 to 70. By that time you should, if you're reasonably lucky, have a Tabula Rasa, and by the time you're 70, you're really ready for maps. You can throw your 6-link on, kind of get into your build, transition to what you actually wanted to play, and then you can just kill Katava, and then you're in maps, and that's the end game. So this has kind of been a pretty, I guess, in-depth guide of leveling. There's a lot of information here for you guys to go over. In terms of the skill tree, I'm going to go over it real quick. I'm going to be pretty brief with this, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So all you're looking for is damage, a little bit of resist and life. So as a Templar, you want to come over here, grab the life, elemental damage over here, more spell damage over here. Then you generally come up to Witch, more spell damage here, more life there. And then you're going to grab a bit of critical strike if you want. And then you're going to move on down here, up over here, and then you have either the choice to get more life here immediately or move down for more damage. Generally, I grab the life, and then you can go up here and get more critical strike, which is really good. And then you can come down here and get that damage you missed out on before. Lots of spell damage here, lots of critical strike. There's more spell damage here in crit. Come down here, get a bit of life. And then when you're moving over to Frostbolt, you should be pretty close to this when you get there. It says 26 here, but you're going to be around 40 here, so you'll be in pretty much late Act 7 or 8. Oh, sorry, late Act 7, early Act 8. So that's when you want to get projectile speed and a bit of resist here. And then you kind of have like a few options. Generally, what I'll do is I'll come down here, and I'll try and make my way over to Scion and get all this life over here, so I get really tanky for Katava. And that's really good because you don't want to be dying on Katava. It can be a bit of a corpse run festival. So when you're playing Frostbolt, you need to pick up these two jewel sockets here, and this is where you're going to be putting that threshold jewel in. So that was the frozen trail, remember? You're going to make sure you put those in these jewel sockets over here. So if you have one, you only want to get one of these. But if you have two, make sure you put the first one in here and the second one over there. So this is the frozen trail again here, guys. It's this jewel here, which you'll be getting in Act 5. So that's really good. Really, really cool there. You can come up here for a bit more damage if you want. And obviously there's just more life around the tree if you'd like to get that as well. So that's going to take us to around 58. You've got 10 more points to spend here. You could just get more life. If you want it, you can get more damage, which you can kind of see all around the place. There's more crit up here if you want it. But basically, at this point, you kind of want to be looking at trying to get into your main build and see where you actually need to go for that. So in terms of Ascendancy, I've kind of listed when you want to do the normal Ascendancy. Generally, I leave Cruel and Merciless till after I finish farming at my 6th link. So that's going to be after Blood Aqueducts farming. Then I go in, I just smash out Cruel and I smash out Merciless. So that's when I do Labyrinth. In terms of what you get first, I always grab, if I'm playing Inquisitor, I always grab Instruments of Virtue because I always try and get Shield Charge activated kind of early, and that's going to give you a ton of stats which you otherwise wouldn't have. As you can see here, that's just a crazy amount of spell damage and attacks and cast speed. So that's kind of been my little guide to how to level up as a Templar. Hopefully you guys learned something and it helped you out a bit. There's going to be a lot more guides coming up. However, I'm a bit slammed at the moment, so they might be a little bit delayed. However, the next video kind of on the agenda is going to be part 2 of the EK Nova kind of Inquisitor guide. And then after that, we're going to get to all those Atlas questions everyone has. I'm going to show you how to block out Atoll and all those other things. So that's what's coming up in the next coming like kind of days. Those will be up maybe tomorrow, but I'm probably going to be working on my website tomorrow, so it'll probably be up in the next 1 to 2 days. Those videos will definitely be pretty exciting to do. So stay tuned for that. We've also got a lot of stuff for the Atlas, like Elder and Shaper Influence. I've been experimenting with those a lot. I basically know exactly how those work now, and I can give you a step-by-step explanation of those as well. So lots to be excited about. That's all I got for today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed, and cheers.